Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Switched On Network podcast. This is the show for anyone who wants to be more switched on to the world of technology, gadgets and the internet. I'm Paul FP and I'm here with my regular guest and co-host, Ben the Noob, who doesn't have a clue about technology.
I wouldn't say he doesn't have a clue, but definitely would like to be more switched on to the world of gadgets, technology, and what's the other one you said?
And the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. And are you feeling more switched on the more we do this podcast?
Every single week.
Excellent.
No, in all seriousness, it is, I'm a 31-year-old man, so I know what's going on around me most of the time. I suppose it's just the intricacies and the speed at which things are moving forward at the moment. Yeah. I like doing this because it just keeps me in touch with all the developments and today's quite an interesting one because I don't know much about this at all.
Today we're asking, are we or could we be brainwashed by Facebook ads?
Listen, watch and get switched on to the latest technology trends and gadgets with switchedonnetwork.com.
So hi Ben, how have you been this week? It's been all right?
Yeah, good, thanks mate.
Yeah, up to much business-wise?
Yeah, I am actually. It's just taking on some new clients, which is always exciting.
Yeah. How did they find you? Was it through your Facebook ads or?
Actually, it was me. I did a massive big email out to a load of magazines.
Ah, very good. Obviously working, yeah. Well, I want to talk about advertising today, but about the darker side of advertising.
Well, yeah.
So we're not talking just about targeted advertising, which is fairly legitimate normally, where a company wants to advertise a particular product or service and they want to target a particular demographic. So maybe like females between the ages of 25 and 34 who are interested in this because they like this page, that sort of thing. I want to talk about where this gets really dark and really sinister.
Yeah, okay. Bit
Homeland-esque, yes.
Because I've been catching up ahead of the new series.
Yeah.
And I've been watching Series 6, I think, recently, where they've got the kind of content farm and they're making up a load of profiles and giving them a load of depth and names, ages, but also then a load of like previous posts, and it's all a a bit... Yeah. Is it a bit like that? Is that what we want to talk about today?
It's a little bit like that. Well, the first thing... Am
I going to want to go and dig a hole and live there?
Maybe, well, you hopefully by the end of this, you won't want to immediately run and delete your Facebook account.
Okay.
Because I should preface this with the fact that this app that I'm going to talk about was stopped and banned by Facebook. They sent cease and desist letters. They banned them from the platform. And the company director, I believe, were banned from using Facebook and Instagram ever again for any reason. So this is quite serious.
Okay.
This was an app called The Spinner.
Never heard of it.
And the way this worked was it was to subconsciously alter people's behaviour. You could approach The Spinner and pay them a fee, and they would send a link to a particular person's phone, whether that's your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or partner or whoever. It relied on them clicking a link, but it would then place a cookie on their device, so whether that's on their phone or on their laptop or on their main computer, which often these things are all synced together, so it may often even have not mattered where they clicked on it, and that would bombard them over the course of several months with online posts disguised as editorial content.
Okay.
So this wouldn't clearly be an advert that they could, be labelled as an advert. This would be, this is really dark and murky
an article
territory.
From the something news that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Or, I'm guessing here because we don't know all of the intricate details, but it might, as well have involved fake profiles that were commenting on things and giving opinions and stuff, very Homeland-esque. And the sort of things that this would be targeting with things like quit smoking, not necessarily a bad thing there, but approaching it from an angle of subverting someone's own free will to do something. If you wanted your partner or someone to lose weight, you could use this service. If you want them to propose marriage, someone could be subconsciously subverted to propose to someone.
Wow.
If this had gone ahead or carried on unchecked. Other things, initiate sex with their partner more often.
Right.
That's
serious.
I'm serious. This is what the article
said. So was it, because you keep saying about partner, this, that and the other, was it advertised specifically at that? Or, were people using it to secretly influence their boss to give him a pay rise? Or
as far as I know from what I've read about this, it was mainly people you knew personally, and another one was to persuade someone to consider having a boob job.
Isn't this bonkers?
This is really quite disgusting, and I was shocked when I read this, and I was genuinely shocked. I'm not joking. to think that there could be such a lack of trust in someone's relationship, where I mean, imagine if you found out that your partner was, trying to subconsciously alter your behaviour. I mean, I think it'd suit me personally.
No, I mean, I suppose, we're going to talk about the technology side of that, aren't we? And kind of how it was done, I suppose. I mean, you just got to get out there straight away. Like, there's no app if there's no demand. Like, can you believe that someone would actually want to?
It's a sad indictment of the society we live in, where people would consider using this, and where someone would think, well, there's a demand there, I'll provide the supply. I mean, so that there's surely a line, and
apparently not.
I mean, but that would be relationship destroying territory if you discovered that your partner, wanted you to lose weight. And was trying to subconsciously affect you to do that, or things surrounding self-esteem and things, trying to encourage them to have a breast enlargement when they don't necessarily want to. How shallow can you get, type thing. I mean, this obviously we know about this one. How much other stuff is going on that we might not know about. Is this something we should be worried about, or is this a sort of this was stopped type thing?
Oh God, I mean, it's if one person's doing it, then someone else is, aren't they?
Potentially, yeah. I mean,
so how did it work then? So let's say that I wanted my girlfriend Jem to do the washing up more often. I don't know.
I like the example you've chosen there.
I mean, or I wanted my brother to come round more. I don't know, something simple like that.
Yeah.
How would it work?
So the way they did it was they would send a link to your brother's phone or to Jem's phone, and then when that link is clicked on, so obviously it would rely on that would go to a particularly tailored page on a website that would then place a cookie on that device. Now, cookies get a bad rep, and we've unfortunately got this ridiculous legislation where every single blooming website you go to pops up a cookie thing. And if they'd done that for charity and introduced swear jars for everyone, then they'd probably solve world hunger overnight, because everyone now goes to a website. I'm not going to swear because I'll have to mark this episode as explicit, but they go to it and go, oh, flippin' heck, go away, and it's so annoying. And cookies get a massively bad rep when there's really nothing wrong with cookies when they're used for good. I suppose this is an example of them being used for bad, but cookies are just part of the web.
So website. Ben the noob. So just take it back. What does a cookie do?
Sorry,
because I know that I accept them whenever I go on a website, because I've got to. I always have things there all the time. But what does a cookie do?
So whenever you go to a web page, it's like you walking into a shop, saying, "Can I have a loaf of bread, please?" The shopkeeper giving you a loaf of bread, and you saying, "Cheers, mate," and walking out. To use the technical term, HTTP, which is what you see at the start of a web address, is a stateless protocol. So, or should I say, it's like sessionless. So you only, the next time you come into the shop, there's nothing to recognise you and say that you've previously bought a loaf of bread and it's you again. So you could then walk out that shop, walk back in and say, "I'd like some eggs, please," and you're a completely brand new customer by default. A cookie is one of many ways in which they can, recognise that you were in this shop last time.
Okay.
So the cookie, I suppose, would be an equivalent of you walking the shop that first time and say, "Can I have a loaf of bread, please?" The shopkeeper gives you the loaf of bread, but he also writes on a little card that he sticks on your forehead. And you, whoever you are, doesn't know who you are necessarily, came into this shop at 10:34 a.m. You bought a loaf of bread.
Yeah, okay.
So when you walk out and come back in again 5 minutes later, that's written on your head.
Yeah.
And he goes, you were in at 10:34 and you bought a loaf of bread. Here's some eggs. And then if he wanted to, he could write "and bought some eggs" on your head.
So it's just a way of a company or organisation keeping a track of your interactions with them.
Yeah, and when you log into a website as well, the way most websites work to say that you are logged in is they'll place a cookie on your computer. It's a little text file, basically. Open up a notepad and you'll see what's in it.
Right.
And it will say, you are logged in and your username is Ben_Anderson or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you log in, you give your username and password. If that's correct, it'll go, you, and it'll put that cookie on your computer. When you log out, the act of logging out is deleting that cookie. So you're no longer logged in. So when you try and go to the My Account page, it looks for that cookie. Are you logged in and who are you? Oh, no, you're not logged in and I don't know who you are, so it'll display the login box.
Okay.
So cookies are a fundamental way that the internet and websites and web pages work.
Okay, and you said that, they get a bad rep. The good way of using them then, I suppose, is if I am a loyal customer to somebody and I keep going back, they might go, you know what, this is your 10th visit, have 10% off.
Yeah, that sort of thing you can use them for, yeah. Things like, you might have a disability or, have certain accessibility requirements, and you might go, you don't see it as much these days, I don't tend to see it, but, at the bottom of a website, turn the font size up.
Right.
And this might be a website where you don't have to log in and create an account, so they can't store that information, with your account. But, the fact that you've turned the text size up because, you can't read the text on the page, I want it bigger. Next time you go to the website, you don't have to do it again every single time. So they place a cookie and you can just go, text size equals 12 or whatever, instead of the default, which might be 8 or something, for example. So the way this, it's not, is it a scam? I was going to use the word scam, but I'm not sure if scam's quite the right word
for the spinner.
Yeah. The way this.
Well, I suppose it's not a scam, is it? It's just it's a service that's a bit dodgy.
But it's sort of scamming the victim. I think victim is definitely the right word. There. It would then place...
If somebody is having something done to... Yeah, cool, I think you're right, actually.
So I imagine, I'm sort of for a moment putting myself in the shoes of if I, as a developer, was told to build this app, the first thing I do is say no, but if I were to build it, you would then, I suppose, have a campaign. And the campaign is, we want this person to change this bit of behaviour. And all you need really is to have a campaign ID number, maybe, campaign number 73, for example. Place a cookie on the computer, campaign 73. And then you would create all this content being targeted at campaign 73. Yeah. And you'd maybe place online ads, maybe there was some sort of traditional, if you like, advertising, and you target it to anyone who has a campaign ID 73 cookie on their computer. I'm grossly...
So, for example, campaign ID 73 could be lose weight. 74 could be get plastic surgery.
That sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would appear then in your social media feeds.
Yeah.
Just like an ad would.
Yeah. So I imagine, obviously, I don't know exactly how this works because I only know what I've sort of been able to find about it, and I'm grossly oversimplifying the way these work. So I'm sure we'll get comments below saying that's not quite how it works. And blah, blah, blah. I'm oversimplifying for the sake of time how this would work.
Yeah, and for the sake of me,
and for the sake of you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I imagine that they would then target you on various social networks. If you're a heavy user of Facebook, they'd probably focus there. So they'd probably sort of speak to the person who's trying to influence you. And I imagine they, put stuff, that you might see in Google searches, and it'll be a lot more advanced than just that cookie ID 73. But to use that as an example, and they'd probably, maybe stalk you on Facebook and what you're doing. They might have set up fake profiles alongside the fake editorial content to sort of interact with you. So you'd see, someone else has this opinion. I mean, as human beings, we like to follow the crowd, don't we? So if we see other people thinking something, then sometimes that can influence us to think in that way as well. So, I mean, it's horrible.
Well, I mean, it's a horrible thing, and it's also. It is shocking. I'd never heard of this.
Yeah,
you'd never even think it.
Yeah.
You do watch these, so the thing on Homeland is it's a bit Cambridge Analytica, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the sense of they are hiring loads and loads of tech people to go to this mysterious building and put out misinformation about political campaigns. It's kind of the same thing then, isn't it? It's a way of influencing somebody by taking things that they are comfortable with, people's faces, editorial content, articles, whatever, and then trying to change their mindset.
And it's this whole sort of online fakery. I mean, was it in the election before Christmas? Didn't we see lots of quite botty looking accounts? hashtag back Boris and stuff. And there was loads of stuff. You're like, well, and I think some of the phrasing and stuff. I can't remember any examples, but I mean, I'm sure there were legitimately people that wanted to back Boris. I'm not saying no one wanted
apparently
to.
Quite a few of them.
Apparently quite a few. But there was an awful lot of quite fake looking stuff, and you get it with fake online reviews as well. I saw a documentary. It was on Canadian television, so I saw it on YouTube, where they were talking about fake reviews for certain, I think it was locksmith companies.
Right.
You know, locksmiths are perfectly legitimate and very required enterprise, but like every industry, there are rogues, unfortunately. And there was this company that it was basically one company, but they'd set up loads of sort of fake Google business listings so that they'd come up as the local locksmith when really they were, you know, not really that local at all, and providing a very bad service. But they had lots of fake reviews, and they actually found one review where the photo of the person writing the review was of some professor guy at a local university.
Right.
They contacted him, and he came on the show and he was like, "Yeah, I did not write that review. That's a picture of me, but that's not my name, and I didn't write that review."
Yeah.
So they're taking, you know, images to make it seem more legitimate.
I saw a newspaper doing that this week.
Oh, really?
Someone on Twitter put a picture up and said, "Oh, this is my mum and dad. Here's the article that accompanied. This is when they were on holiday and wherever.
Yeah.
This is the article that. Oh wait, so which newspaper it was?
Yeah.
But used fake names, made up a completely fake story.
Yeah.
This is bonkers.
I can guess it was probably A, B, or C newspaper.
Yeah. No, it was.
Was it A, B, or C?
It was. I think it was C.
Oh, was it C? Yeah, I could have guessed it was C. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's terrible, isn't it? Fortunately, we should say this one. The spinner, as it was called, was stopped. You know, Facebook stopped it. It was completely against their terms of service.
As you said, one person's doing it.
So you know, is other stuff happening? One example of an ad for a business that doesn't brainwash you is Skillshare. Skillshare are
Nice.
this episode's sponsor. So we just want to give a quick shout out to them before we get on to our next topic of Facebook brainwashing, which has been very well documented. So thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode. Skillshare is a bit like Netflix for learning and developing new skills, so it fits in, you know, very well to the whole switched on network ethos of becoming more switched on to the world around you.
Technology, gadgets, and the internet.
Technology, gadgets, smart home, and the internet.
A new one as well.
Sometimes add smart home in there as well.
Just when you feel like it.
When you feel smart, so there are courses on Skillshare. There's 3 million people using them. They give you sort of like bite-sized chunks on how to learn a particular new skill or, you know, line of work, etc. You can succeed in today's and the future's economy with thousands of classes in design, business, technology, and more. Very affordably priced, between £7 and £13 a month. But as a switched on network subscriber, you get 2 months free by clicking the link in the show notes or video description. So have a look at that and become more switched on in whatever area you want to become switched on in.
And you can also become a teacher, can't you?
You can as well. You can also teach a skill. So if you want to create a series of courses and impart your knowledge onto others, you can also do that as well on Skillshare. So,
great.
Yeah. But back to Facebook adverts potentially brainwashing us. The spinner ads were stopped, and the company and the chief executive, as I said, were banned from using Facebook and Instagram at all ever again for any reason. But I want to talk about the great British Brexit robbery.
Okay.
Now, anyone who knows me knows that I'm vehemently anti-Brexit, but we don't want to get into the whole, you know, Brexit stuff too much in this episode.
So it might hurt my head a bit too much.
Yeah. However, it should be noted, you know, that the role that Facebook played in Brexit, whether or not you're pro or against, or whether you couldn't care less. And obviously, you mentioned briefly before Cambridge Analytica, didn't you?
But that was, I mean, everyone knows that name, don't they? I've got to admit, I don't know exactly how it all worked and transpired, but everyone knows that Cambridge Analytica were, I mean, they were done, weren't they, for... I mean, well, you explain it.
Well, so you were asking me about, you know, exactly what happened and is it still going on? As far as I and we all know, the answer to that, fortunately, is no. Cambridge Analytica and Facebook played a role in both the Trump and the Brexit campaigns.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, so what? You know, it's a platform that's used for advertising. It's just like a party political broadcast on the TV. What's the problem with that? Well, Cambridge Analytica is this quite dark, dystopian data company. And are you familiar with the concept of psychological warfare?
Well, in what terms?
So this is sort of psyops or psychological operations. This is basically a military tactic which is used to effect sentiment change.
Right.
So if we think about what that term sort of implies and is likely to mean, that's sort of changing the hearts and minds and winning over the hearts and minds of a population. And this is used or has been used in the past. We are led to believe by these revelations in developing countries mainly that don't have many rules to win elections.
Okay.
And I discovered whilst researching for this episode that the British forces employed psychological operations in Afghanistan, apparently, during the operations there. And Cambridge Analytica is effectively part of the British and American defence establishment.
Okay.
So much for Trump and Brexit being, rallying against the establishment and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's, that's the biggest con of all, really, isn't it? With this whole Brexit thing, trying to pitch it as the people against the establishment, and Nigel Farage being the man of the people, rallying up against the establishment when he's basically as establishment as you could possibly get.
Well,
it's ridiculous.
But without getting too political.
I mean, this is similar to what we were discussing last week, which was, how much does Amazon know about me, and all the data that Amazon is collecting on us. But this is taking it to the next level. If you thought that was a lot of data, this is doing it for sort of more illicit purposes, but often illegally, definitely without people's knowledge and consent.
Yeah.
An absolutely huge amounts of data, our likes and reactions to things that interest and concern us on primarily Facebook. So this is less like a billboard seen, with a generic message seen by the masses, which we discussed briefly last week. This is more like someone who's been spying on you, and you particularly, for months and months, knows you inside out, and is going up to you and whispering the particular message in just your ear, so only you can hear that, and they know exactly what's going to push your buttons, what's concerning you, what might upset you, and then your friend standing next to you, they might go up and whisper something else into their ear, something completely different, and unless you tell each other, you'll never know what the other person heard or that the other person was even being whispered to. So this is miles away from the traditional, this political party wants to win the election, so they whack up a billboard advert that everyone sees. This is all, this all happened in the dark. Without anyone knowing, on Facebook, and with millions and millions of pounds funded by goodness knows who. So it's scary stuff. That all this happened, and it's obviously come out now that it happened, and it makes you think twice about the world we're living in now. Social media and Facebook and everything are fantastic on the one hand, but the fact that they can be misused in this way and weren't perhaps as cooperative as they could have been in the aftermath.
Yeah. Okay, you need to explain this one a bit more to me, because you're saying about the spinner that used cookies, and it would be kind of group A, or what did you say, number 71 would be to lose weight, number 72 would be this, that and the other. How did they do it then? So they were whispering this in my ear and something else in yours. Like how did they make it so personalised and so tailored?
So they did a few things. One of them was the in the run up to the 2016 Euros in the UK. Basically, the Brexit campaign was described as the Petri dish for Trump. They tried it out on this tiny little insignificant island off the northwest coast of Europe called the UK. And then it works, and then they amplified it and did the same tactics later that same year with the Trump campaign. Basically, I think you said you saw this advert on your Facebook, and I was aware of it at the time. I saw it. So I personally was targeted with this. Correctly guessed the results of all 51 football matches in the 2016 Euros to win 50 million quid. Just have a guess at what the odds are of correctly predicting the score.
So was it the exact score, or was it win, lose, or draw?
I think it was I might be wrong. I think it was the exact score.
Because if it was the exact score, then that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Maybe it was win,
like
lose,
millions and millions and millions to one.
Because you could have an unlimited number of goals scored on either side, couldn't you? So maybe it was win, lose, or draw.
Well, I mean, okay, let's just do some very crude maths. But let's say if it was win, lose, or draw. So you've got 3 outcomes to every match. You've got, 6 groups? With how many games? Oh, there's too many numbers to think about. I'm going to say, to predict win, lose, or draw for every game in the Euros, you're looking at about 10 million to 1.
Okay. Well, actually, apparently, there was a 1 in 5 sextillion chance.
What is that number?
So you've got thousands, million, billion, trillion. Is sextillion next, or is it something?
I've never even heard of it.
It's like, I think it was 7 or 8 groups of 3 zeros.
Right.
the number. So it's like 1 in 5, then the zeros basically go on and on and on and on and on. So basically there's no chance of winning.
Yeah.
I think they backed it up with an insurance policy just in case for the 50 million quid, but no one was going to win 50 million quid.
Yeah.
But they harvested the contact details of thousands and thousands of people
Who entered.
Yeah, who entered that. Happily
Hang on
gave
a
up their
second.
personal details.
I saw you doing a competition on Instagram not long ago as you passed your 5,000 subscriber.
Yeah, so harvesting the data.
Are you harvesting my data, Paul?
I'm harvesting your data, baby.
Not in a weird way, though.
Not in a totally platonic way.
Yeah.
But these people wouldn't normally necessarily be interested in a referendum and probably didn't really. I'm not going to stereotype or caricature people, but this was a fantastic, clever, very sneaky, probably illegal way of getting the information of these people, so that they could then later be bombarded on Facebook with these ads. Maybe even sent stuff in the post. I don't know what level of information they got, but
so it didn't say like hashtag ad. So what kind of thing would people be fed content wise? So it'd be things like 50 reasons to not believe the left or something like that.
Yeah, well, if you have a look, eventually some of the ads that people were being served on Facebook did come out, and you've got things like saying Albania, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia and Turkey are joining the EU, and it says seriously.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, a lot... opinions of the pros and cons of being an EU member go out the window in this. This isn't about whether or not you think we should remain or leave.
Yeah.
This is plain lies and disinformation, which it is just ridiculous. I mean, there's one here that I'm looking at showing bullfighting in Spain, and it says these are animals, not entertainment. Stop animal abuse. Okay, well, what's that really got to do with whether or not we stay as an influential member of the EU? Other things like you've seen this one here: the European Union wants to kill our cuppa.
Right.
No, that where's that come from? The EU blocks our ability to speak out and protect polar bears.
Right.
Again, no.
So it was just a load of random, not necessarily one thread of things. It was just a load of different...
load of stuff. There's an image here of ball you have around your ankle, ball and chain. And the EU flag's on the ball. The whole every week we send 350 million to the EU, enough to build an NHS hospital every 7 days. Well, obviously that's demonstrated to be false. But then it gets even worse when you've got...
Because actually, just quickly before you move on to the worst ones, because those kind of messages... You wouldn't really there's nothing in them. I mean, they might be a bit silly, but like the ball and chain one, for example, you could see Vote Leave using that on a billboard and going, well, of course, but I suppose the thing here is that it didn't say this message has been paid for by Vote Leave. Is that the idea of why it was?
That one had the Believe logo in the corner, which is the separate entity that they were found guilty of pushing money through when they'd gone over their spending limits. Because we have strict laws in the UK to limit how much you can spend in political campaigns, because hundreds of years ago, people literally used to walk down the streets with wheelbarrows full of cash, paying people to go and vote. So to stop that happening, for the last 100 years, we've had very strict spending limits. But they were prosecuted, or I don't know if they're prosecuted, they're found guilty of overspending and hiding the fact that they'd overspent there. But then we've got ones here like Turkey has a population of 76 million. I presume that's right. I've not looked it up. And it says Turkey is joining the EU. Well, that's not correct. That's not true at all. There weren't even any remote prospects of Turkey joining the EU anytime soon. And I think since 2016, that's become even less of a possibility for other reasons.
80.81 million, by the way.
It's gone
2018.
Yeah. It may have been, close to that then. And they've used this sort of Dad's Army style imagery with the arrow pointing all the way from there to the UK. I remember when we actually got through our postbox here, which they'd very selectively labelled the countries next to Turkey: Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, those sort of countries.
Syria.
Obviously those are the countries that were in the news. I mean, that's a cheap trick in terms of marketing. That's not necessarily dark, but it's the way they were then targeting these really targeted adverts to folk on Facebook. There's a TED talk by Carol Cadwallader, who is an investigative journalist for The Observer and The Guardian. She tells the story of how when she was sent by her editor to find out why people in Ebbw Vale in South Wales, which I think is roughly where she's from, why there was a very high percentage of Leave votes there. This is one of many areas where it used to have coal mines and steelworks, which have now closed, and that often corresponds to the high Leave vote. And she said when she was last there, it used to be full of dirty old coal industry, and it looks very different now. And in her TED talk, which is definitely worth a watch if you've not seen it, she shows the photo of the £33 million College of Further Education, mostly funded by the EU.
Yeah. Well, where we live, Liverpool had a transformation mostly
by the
EU money.
EU, and Liverpool voted to remain.
Yeah.
But this area also has a flashy new sports centre with superb facilities, which is part of a £350 million regeneration project funded by the EU. A £77 million road improvement scheme funded by the EU.
Yeah.
So this
But
area
it's still voted to leave.
This area, which was really on the down because the coal mines had disappeared and the steelworks, weren't really being helped by necessarily the UK government, but massively helped by collectively us and the other countries.
Yeah.
I'm very very particular not to label the EU as someone else, them and us. I mean, obviously we have now left, sadly, but the whole them and us was the biggest lie of all. New train line, new railway station, and there were big signs everywhere telling people this is funded by the EU. So it's not as if people didn't know.
Yeah.
So you spoke to people on the street. Why did you vote to leave then? He said, well, EU's done nothing for me. I'm fed up with the EU. It's never done anything for me.
Yeah.
Look around. It's revitalising this whole area. He was fed up with it, and he said he wanted to take back control because he was sick and tired of the immigrants and refugees.
Right.
And he'd had enough of it. But it's funny because Ebbw Vale has hardly any immigrants or refugees, hardly any foreign, inverted commas, people at all. In fact, looking up at the stats, it had one of the lowest rates of immigration in the country. So why do people think that way? And then people say, well, we see all this stuff on Facebook. What sort of stuff? And people reported seeing some quite scary stuff on Facebook about immigration, especially about Turkey. Scary imagery of a sort of terrorist style look person, with armor and guns and balaclava on, menacingly looking into the camera. Right. Painting all people from Turkey like that is essentially a hate crime. And implying that the entire population of Turkey is going to come and move here, and that they're all these. It's just.
Well, there was the images of like people behind barbed wire that they're on the border, they're arriving soon. I suppose all that kind of emotive imagery. But I mean, how as a normal user could you tell that it was sponsored or that it was put there, or like how was it presented to you? Was it from a fake profile? Would it be
no? Well, it's presented as an ad. It wasn't a traditional one size fits all. Loads of people are seeing this ad. It was really, really micro targeted. A bit I want to read to you here about this mass data harvesting and psychological warfare techniques that were in use. It was Facebook that made it possible. It was from Facebook that Cambridge Analytica obtained its vast data set in the first place. Earlier, psychologists at Cambridge University, obviously here in the UK, harvested Facebook data legally for research purposes and published pioneering peer-reviewed work about determining personality traits, political partisanship, sexuality, and much more from people's Facebook likes. And then SCL / Cambridge Analytica contracted a scientist at the university to harvest new Facebook data. This is the thing you might have heard of, where they did this personality quiz. And this was the thing that made the news quite a bit. And Facebook even produced a tool where it could tell you if your data was harvested by this app. Fortunately, mine wasn't. So that means none of my Facebook friends took the test and gave their information.
I've got no idea if mine would have been or not.
He paid people to take a personality quiz, which also allowed not just their Facebook profiles to be harvested, but those of their friends as well. Because
I've got loads of friends who do this stuff all the time.
So the app on Facebook, you'd allow it access to your profile, but one of the things that it would also be getting access to is your friends' profiles. And then once it's got access to their profiles, it can get access to friends of that friend, and it just expands and grows and grows and grows. And this is how they got their sort of 86 million, which is a mind-bogglingly huge number. And what they also did was, again, perfectly legally this time, they bought consumer data sets on everything from like magazine subscriptions to airline travel, and then it linked those up with the data it had got illicitly from Facebook to really hone in on exactly who these people were on at sort of individual levels. That gave them access to people's addresses, phone number, and often email addresses, and captured every single aspect of every voter's information. And then they would identify persuadable voters and really micro-target them, which on its own, if done, legit, is slightly creepy, but wouldn't necessarily be illegal. But it's the fact that they got so much data in an illicit way.
I mean, as a user, is there any way to distinguish because obviously, this isn't legal. Yeah. So governments go after people who break the rules, but there's always going to be people trying to break the rules in one way.
Finding new ways.
As users, is there anything that we can do or is it just literally a case of being a bit more aware and going, hang on, that don't sound quite right?
Yeah, I mean, this was a little bit of a watershed moment. Unfortunately, things have changed. I mean, I suppose, every time a disaster happens or like a plane crashes or something, you learn from it. I think the world hasn't been quite as quick to learn from it as maybe it could have been, and especially Facebook were on the wrong side of history. They tried to sue The Guardian to stop them publishing information about this. And I think they later acknowledged that wasn't the right call. And you can now go on any Facebook business page and you can see all the ads that they're running and all the ads that they have run, right? Even if it's not targeted to you. And you can also, when you do see an ad, you can hover over it and say, why am I seeing this ad? So you can see, why you were targeted with that particular ad. So I think the key thing for us as consumers and users of social media, particularly Facebook, is to be aware of it and to know that this thing happened. It was massively misused in this way, and number one, be aware of it. Number two, if you want to and if you have the time, you there's a lot more transparency now. You can go and look and see all the ads that a business is running, which by that being made open and public and quite easy to find, it will obviously it closes off a door for people to misuse it in a way, creating an ad that they only want some people to see and they definitely don't want other people to see it. Well, that can no longer happen. So that's a good thing.
Okay. So to bring you back to the original question, the title of this episode.
Are we being brainwashed by Facebook ads? Potentially at some point in the past, some people have been. Yeah. And be aware of that. And just be aware that it can happen.
But it's unlikely for it. Because this was such a big deal.
But right now, today, we are hopefully not being brainwashed by Facebook ads.
Okay.
So hopefully this episode has provided some solace to people, and hopefully this puts your minds at ease.
Well, to be honest, you put my mind at ease about something I didn't really realise my mind should have been uneasy about.
True, yeah.
But it's interesting to go through it all.
So what I've done, I've taken your mind and I've made it really uneasy, and then I've settled it down again.
Yeah.
But this thing happened. It's been hopefully dealt with, and hopefully it won't happen again. At least not in the same way. I mean, we've got a big election coming up in November this year in the world, and we'll have to see what happens with that.
I can't believe that's been 4 years.
I know.
4 years of Trump.
4 years, yeah.
Jeez.
Do you think we'll have another 4 years?
We're not getting too political on this, are we?
We're not, no.
But I think it's probably a big possibility.
Yeah, there is. And who knows? They've done this. Who knows what else they'll do and find other ways. Where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always going to be a will, so there's probably always going to be a way.
And on that,
positive note, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then please give us a like if you're watching on the video platform, or subscribe and give us a rating on your podcast platform. If you really like what we're doing here on the Switched On Network, we have a Patreon as well, and you can support us in that way. That'd be very much appreciated, and you get some extra bonus content and resources and other things as well. And the main thing you get is that warm, fuzzy feeling inside knowing that you're helping to support the Switched On Network. But that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Switched On Network podcast, produced by Sound Rebel and Innobella Media. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, or your chosen podcast app. And give us a thumbs up, click like, or give us a rating and a review. You can follow us at Switched On Network on Facebook and Instagram, and at Switched On Net on Twitter. Discover more of Sound Rebels podcasts at soundrebel.co.uk.